your own bathroom, pwede pa rin. Kaya lang dapat walang kasama sa bahay na meron ng comorbidities yun.
But isn't that the old rule that you can have home quarantine if you have these three elements involved?
Pero
yung may sariling kwarto, may sariling CR at wala kang comorbidity. Di ba dati na yan?
Pero nung una, pinapayagan pa yung mga kahit wala. Napapayagan sila. Hindi pa nagbalak nga na mag-house to house para persuade yung mga tao. Hindi naman yata natuloy si house to house. Naumpisahan pero hindi na tinuloy. Pero ngayon, ayan, meron ng order ng IATF. Baka nga mag-house to house na. We don't know. Wala naman sinabing house to house.
Parang walang masyadong nagkaiba. It really does sound the same. Anyway,
hindi, ang bago lang in-approve ng IATF.
Okay.
So kung gustong enforce nung barangay, pwede na nilang may resolution na yung IATF. So kailangan umalis kayo sa bahay nyo kasi hindi pwede.
Okay, well, we have to bring in our guest na dahil we started late. So let's bring in our first guest for tonight. Of course, we will talk about the proposal to defer the elections later in the show, the second half of the show. But we begin tonight muna with one of the LGUs that made quite a mark at the start of the pandemic. We're talking, of course, about Marikina. We're bringing in Marikina Mayor Marcy Teodoro. Mayor Marcy, good evening po and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Ed, Ami, and Robbie. Magandang gabi.
Good evening, Mayor.
Mayor, I do remember nung gine-guest po namin kayo at the start of the pandemic, Marikina was parang breaking new ground in acting on the pandemic. In fact, you were breaking such new ground that even the DOH did not know what to do with you when you put up your own RT-PCR lab. Parang hindi nila malaman kung ano gagawin nila sa inyo. Well, I bring it up kasi with all those innovations that you had, kamusta ngayon ang Marikina 6 months into the pandemic?
Ang COVID situation sa ngayon dito sa Marikina, Ed, we have 330 active cases. I think that's one of the lowest in the National Capital Region. And we have 15.30 days of case doubling time. So that is really above the standard of 6 to 8 days as prescribed by the World Health Organization. But the real challenge now is with the quarantine facilities that we have, the absorptive capacity of our quarantine facilities. For example, in the case of Marikina, we have 330 cases, but the quarantine facility that we have, this is an LGU-run quarantine facility, by the way. We only have 220 bed capacity. So it's not only full to the brim, but it's beyond the capacity that we have. So by contingency, we are allowing home quarantine provided the conditions are set for home quarantine. Yung mga walang may comorbidities, yung merong separate bathroom, we lock down the household, or the compound where the household is located. Ganun yung ginagawa namin. Yun nga lang, ang challenge doon, pag ni-lockdown mo, kailangan suportahan mo kung ano yung kailangan nila. Not only on the medical needs, but also yung socio-economic needs din yan. Pagkain, hindi lang minsan pagkain, even the mental health of the household, yung mga ganon, yung mga consultation na dapat mong gawin. Even yung paano mo ipapacify yung issue dun sa community. Maraming problema pag nag-home quarantine kaya nga ang Marikina, tinitingnan namin kung ano yung ideal setup for quarantine facilities. We're increasing the number of our facilities for the purpose.
Paano yan ngayon yung merong IATF yung IATF resolution, malaking mababago sa mga tao. Naririnig niyo ako? Mukhang nagbe-break apart ako.
Nagbe-break kami Nagbe-break ng konti.
Okay na ba? Mali yata.
May echo.
Oo nga eh. Wala na.
Ayan, parang medyo malinaw na. Sige, pakiulit
Okay.
na po.
Kasi nagkaroon ng IATF resolution na yun na nga, yung mga madadagdagan ng mga tao na mapipilitang umalis sa bahay. Hindi na sila covered ng home quarantine. Paano yan? Kulang nga yung sinabi niyong capacity for government quarantine. Anong gagawin niyo? Anong pwede niyo gawin yan?
Nagkaroon kami ng consultation with the cabinet assigned to our LGU. In our case, si Secretary Bello at si Chair Popoy de Vera yung assigned na cabinet secretary sa Marikina. We had the opportunity to meet last week. At nabanggit nga namin yan din sa kanila, yung impact niyang IATF resolution. During that time, pinag-uusapan pa nila. Sabi namin, dapat kung meron silang mga policy na ganyan, they should also support the LGU or the locality with the necessary and appropriate resources for the purpose. Hindi ka po pwede mag-require ng quarantine sa isang facility by the government kung wala namang corresponding facilities for the purpose. In the case of Marikina, in collaboration with the Department of Public Works and Department of Health, ini-increase namin by another 150 to 180 bed capacity yung quarantine facility. We are collaborating with the national government in terms of resource sharing. We are providing the land and they're providing the structure for the quarantine. So hopefully, matatapos na namin yung quarantine facility na yan sa Marikina. Yun nga lang, syempre we always need to recalibrate and to be very flexible about yung policy natin. Kasi yung cases nagbabago hindi naman naka-fix There are instances na tumataas, may instances na bumababa. For example, 3 days ago or 4 days ago, nasa 500 cases kami Bumaba lang nito after 2 or 3 days. Nagkaroon kami ng new testing na ginawa, nag-reswab kami. Lumabas dun sa result na marami nang negative. Medyo nagdi-deviate din kami sa policy nga ng DOH na to. Yan nga yung inire-request kami sa kanila. Since may testing capacity naman kami, we could do the test naman with all our cases. We're telling them that we should be allowed to continue with it. Kasi ang policy nila, policy sila, pag after 14-day quarantine o isolation, pwede nang i-declare na free of COVID. Pero in Marikina, we do not allow that. We do testing para lang sigurado. And we issue certificate of recovery based on the testing. Dahil maraming purpose din yun Pagpasok niya ulit sa trabaho or for travel purposes or pati sa tao, yung kanyang yung satisfaction niya sa sarili. Ito yung may hawak sa certificate of recovery na may kasama naka-attach na result ng PCR test.
In the meantime, Mayor, ito na naman tayo, end of the month, and maglalapse na yung phase natin for GCQ. This is our monthly debate going on around the nation. Should we level up or level down, however you want to see it, yung quarantine protocols natin? Some are already lobbying for MGCQ. Department of Labor, DTI is backing this up. Where does Marikina stand?
Robbie, actually, nag-consultation na yung mga Metro Manila mayors, hiningi na yung mga position namin individually, I don't know kung ano yung result collectively, kung whether the position of the Metro Manila mayors as a whole is for downgrading or upgrading or status quo, Pero sa Marikina, our position is that we remain at GCQ. But we could be flexible with some of our policies in terms of economic activities. Plus the fact that we should exercise not only minimum health protocols, but if upon opening of some other economic activities, dapat mag-exercise na tayo ng tinatawag na maximum health protocols. Sa Marikina, we're trying to do that. For example, nire-require namin halimbawa in work setting, hindi lang yung pag-susuot ng mga face mask o face shield, yung pag-exercise ng social distancing, but we are physically reconfiguring the work setting of our plants, industrial, both industrial and manufacturing sa Marikina. Plus, even yung mga dinadaanan ng mga workers, unidirectional na ngayon para i-avoid yung contamination. May mga exhaust fan na dinadagdag sa mga work area para may negative pressure sa work setting nila. Plus the fact, we were doing surveillance testing for our work setting here in Marikina, and we are requiring our plants in the plants and factories with isolation facilities. At minomonitor namin itong mahigpit. For example, kanina nga bago itong program natin, meron akong isang factory dito sa Marikina na baka i-penalize kasi imbis na nung may ma-discover na positive cases sila, hindi nila in-isolate doon sa loob ng factory. Pinauwi. So ang problem is yung contamination doon sa community ngayon. So we're doing contact tracing as we speak now in the communities, and we contacted the factory early this evening, and sinabi namin that they need to cooperate with the LGU. Yun nga lang, sabi sa akin, ang IATF is okay with them, compliant sila with the DOLE requirement, pero sabi namin, we have a different set of rules here in Marikina na we're exercising maximum health protocols.
Yeah, but Mayor, when you say na GCQ, pero you will allow yourself some flexibility, what exactly does that mean? Flexibility in terms of certain sectors of the economy, or does that mean certain flexibility in general protocols? What exactly do you mean na pwedeng GCQ but open case of
Yeah, certain sector in the economy, in opening up other activities in the economic front. We need to recognize the fact na kailangan ng tao naman natin ngayon, trabaho na talaga makatrabaho sila. Flexibility also in terms of perhaps in the public transport sector, inopen nga natin yung economic activities natin. Wala namang corresponding public transport na kinakailangan. Yung health protocols, yung social distancing, we believe that it should be maintained. Hindi yung tulad na ginawa earlier natin na inalaw na yung mas malapit na magkakadikit ang pasahero sa isang sasakyan. Ang ibig ko sabihin siguro, we could add up more routes, opening of more routes, putting up more additional units of transportation in our roads, yung mga ganon, and other, of course, yung other alternative mode of transportation natin, For example, in Marikina, may bike lane kami rito. We are reconfiguring it dahil ngayon, ang bike lane namin dati, wala doon sa mga major route Ngayon, may mga bisikleta doon sa mga major route namin ngayon. Nagpo-share na yung mga sasakyan na pampubliko at yung mga bisikleta, yung mga ganun siguro, we should be able to revisit and to recalibrate our policies on those.
Atras ako ng konti. Amir, atras lang ng konti. It's interesting that you brought up kanina the national policy of automatically declaring COVID positive patient cured after 14 days of isolation. Sabi niyo, you don't do that. You still insist on testing. even after 14 days, which actually goes against that national policy. But that, I find that interesting kasi I was wondering lang if you found any indication that the virus runs for more than 14 days. Kasi I read that in some studies, mukhang lumalagpas ng 14 days or 2 weeks
meron.
yung virus. So baka nakakahawa pa yung mga tao kaya kailangan i-testing.
Ganon, Ed, yung idea namin eh. Baka yung threat to the individual, to the patient with COVID, baka lesser na. Kasi siyempre, maring remnants na, viral remnants na lang yung meron siya. Pero still, carrier pa rin siya, makakahawa pa rin siya, no? Kaya nga kami, basically, sinusunod din namin yung 14 days ng DOH, pero kami, tinetest namin. Ngayon, nakita namin, meron pa rin siya mga viral remnants, we do what we call clinical evaluation. Tinitingnan siya ng doktor kung bakit meron pa siyang virus after the period of 14 days. Dahil sabi nila, 10 days, paring wala na eh. Another 4 is para to ensure na talagang totally mag-zero na yung virus eh. Pero in some cases, talagang nakikita rin namin na meron pa rin. Meron nga kaming isang kaso, for example, 1 month na meron pa rin siyang nagpa-positive pa rin siya eh. So what we did with the patient is that we advise with the patient to do a continuing quarantine. Tapos yun nga lang, in order to persuade the patient, sinusupport namin siya nung pangangailangan niya. Nagiging in terms of resources, mas malaki yung kinakailangan lang namin ibigay.
Although, sir, yun lang kasi, I suppose that's pretty significant kasi if the policy on the national level is to just release after 14 days, baka we're releasing people who are still sick or still infectious. So I'm wondering if you see the need. I'm wondering if you see the need to rethink that national policy.
Yes, Ed. Nakikita namin na abundance of caution eh. That's what we're exercising eh. Kasi the mandate really that we're exercising is to prevent the spread of the virus eh. Containment measure eh. Not simply to treat the person eh, but to contain the spread of the virus. And based on the declaration of the President under the Public Health Emergency and under the General Welfare Clause of the Local Government Code, we could exercise necessary and appropriate authority to prevent the spread of the virus. So, over and above what is required by the national directive, we have this local policy of continuing quarantine for those tested yet positive even after 14 days.
Mayor, sabi niyo gusto niyo magbukas ng additional, sabi niyo additional businesses to reopen. Ano-ano to? Ano tong mga gusto niyong buksan pa? Saka sabi ni Mayor Olivares, the mayors now want a GCQ for another month. Tama ba yon?
Parang ganun yung predisposition ng mga mayors eh. Pero hindi ko alam kung ano yung naging decision din ng marami sa amin. Kasi individually consulted din kami on our recommendation eh. We are yet to meet as a group pa naman. For example, in Marikina, malaki kasi sa bulk ng businesses namin dito is the retail industry. So we want to open up more retail establishments in the city. This is in a way also will support the manufacturing sector naman, especially ngayon during this period of the year, magpapasko. We're expecting na ang tao naman talaga bibili at bibili. So we need to our retail establishments, of course with maximum health protocol.
Speaking of which,
micro enterprises ang sinasabi nyo. Kasi ang pagkaalam namin yung retail sector bukas na eh. You're talking about micro retail.
Yes, the micro, yeah. That's what I'm pertaining to. Saka ngayon, ang totoo, we have a local social amelioration program for our small and medium scale. Nagbibigay din kami ng mga 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 tulong. Yung iba namin project, of course, question palagi ng resources, naka-tie up or naka-joint undertaking kami with the Department of Trade and Industry. Yung ganung setup. Tapos we do surveillance testing for their sector. We have enhanced targeted testing eh. Kasi ang hinahabol talaga ng mga tao bago pumunta sa iyong establishment. Kasi nila malaman kung COVID-free ka, kung nag-exercise ka pa ng health protocol. So hindi lang testing, minsan tumutulong din kami, nagsasubsidize din kami pagbibigay ng mga pagdisinfectant, yung mga face shield, yung mga gano'n talagang iba yung necessity ngayon eh. What's good happening in Marikina, Robbie at Ami, and for example, San Miguel Corporation transferred their factories here in Marikina recently, a month ago. They are opening up. A new supermarket will be opening up in Marikina by April. They started constructing now an SNR supermarket. So nakikita namin may mga opportunity pa rin at yung employment, sabi nga namin may nawawala, pero merong mga bago namang emerging.
Ito, Mayor, hindi ito bago. It's what Marikina is known for. But the last time you were here, nabanggit nyo rin, noong August, you said something like, at that point, about 80% of the shoe industry in Marikina had been affected. But at the same time, you also noted, speaking of retail, tumataas sa mga nag-o-online retailers given the online platforms. So, nabanggit nyo na rin yung bare months coming in, magpapasko na. Where is the shoe industry right now? Kamusta naman po dyan sa Marikina?
Yung niche naman ng shoe industry is still there. Nagbago nga lang din ang marketing strategy natin. Nag-open kami naman ng trade fair, physical store. Unfortunately, nobody is coming into the store. So we develop a digital platform for our shoe manufacturers. Yun yung ginagawa natin. So even in the registry of business, nag-iba rin. Marami ngayon nag-register ng digital or yung online selling. So sabi ko nga sa aming Business Permits and License Office, we simply exercise yung ease of doing business para doon sa mga nagpapa-register or nagre-register. Marami rin nagre-register yung mga food delivery yung mga ganyan. Kumukuha ng mga permits So ito talaga nagbabago talaga even yung trabaho ng marami sa ating mga kababayan sa ngayon. So I think yung policy natin pati sa gobyerno, sa pamahalaan, it's dapat contingent doon sa nangyayari sa ground walang hard and fast rule na pwede na mag-apply sa lahat Kaya flexibility at this point in time is very important in terms of policy framework that we're using, even in our resource management, kailangan nakasunod kung ano yung nangyayari sa baba. Kaya kailangan tingin ko nakikipag-usap palagi tayo sa mga tao Hindi lang we're not simply listening to what the experts will say, but we should first and foremost listen to what the people are saying nowadays.
Okay. Well, maraming salamat po. Mayor Marcy Teodoro, ingat po kayo at best of luck sa inyong syudad.
Salamat po sa inyo. Mabuhay kayo.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Ami, thank you.
Thank you po.
Sayang masarap pa naman yung pansit dun sa Marikina. We will just pause our break, so please stay with us.
Welcome back, the Chiefs. We're now in the final stage of our conversation. Joining us now is Director James Jimenez, spokesperson for the Commission on Elections. Director Jimenez, welcome to the Chiefs once again.
Good evening, Robbie. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Sir Ed, Ma'am Amy. Good evening. Hello.
Okay. Sir, alam naman natin, may proposal to postpone, pinag-uusapan na yan, postpone the elections. We know, of course, the elections, the Constitution requires, particularly sa Mayo, kailangan mangyayari yan. On the other hand, may alam nating force majeure. Theoretically, if 2 years from now, may force majeure pa rin. Is there a categorical answer to this, whether or not that's even something that we can consider?
Yes, the categorical answer is no. Even now, our assumption is that 2022 will be a COVID year pa rin. So walang nagbago, no? In fact, right now, ang preparations natin are precisely designed with the expectation that we will be having problems with COVID all the way up to 2022 and probably beyond. Kaya nga ngayon, ang pinupush natin, hindi lang simpleng pag-prepare ng mga balota and everything, no? We're also looking to expand yung mga alternative modes of voting, katulad halimbawa ng voting by mail at early voting for senior citizens. Hindi lang, kasi ang early voting, halimbawa yung absentee voting, that's only available for members of the media and government officials, no? But now we're looking to expand it. So, and katulong namin dyan ng Congress. So, on our part, yung pwede namin gawin na kami lang, we are going to move filing of certificates of candidacy online. We hope that by October next year, it will be fully online so that no one has to go to the office just to file. And at this point, again, very early days for this, but we're already studying the campaign landscape. I'm sure you are aware that up to this point, no one has actually regulated the physical campaigning. Ang nire-regulate lang ng Comelec, yung mga ads, yung mga lumalabas na posters, etc. But now we're actually considering the possibility of regulating physical campaigning dahil it's a danger to people, you know? And
mass gathering lahat yun.
Exactly. And we're expecting, you know, that'll be exciting times for us. I mean, I'm sure someone's gonna complain at some point, right? But ang sana nga, ang iniisip lang namin is if we come to that point and people start complaining about Comelec trying to regulate some things that we didn't regulate before, sana they remember that their alternative solution was to postpone the elections outright. So,
okay,
I mean...
Mr. Jimenez, so categorical, hindi, kailangan mangyari ang eleksyon, lalong-lalo na. Wala force majeure dyan. We have 2 years to plan. Di ba? So, so pwede natin pagplanuhan. But at the same time, we are still open to the fact that abnormal yung times na yan. So, asan ang elbow room nyo? I mean, given that it will still be your mandate and it is still going to be a constitutional requirement for the entire country to hold the elections, but within those parameters, what room do you have to maneuver? Can you extend voting hours? Can you localize schedules? I mean, saan po kayo pwedeng mag-adjust? Kayo pwedeng mag-maneuver?
Well, like I said earlier, no, we have maneuvering room in terms of alternate voting methods. Voting by mail is a departure from what we do usually, no. But also, I'm glad you mentioned that extending voting hours is something that the Comelec does on its own. And we think also that we can do multiple days. For overseas voting, remember, we do voting for 30 days prior to the elections. So maybe we can do it for national elections for 2 to 3 days. No, that would thin out the number of people coming to the polling places. Again, in the category of things that we can do by ourselves, yung mga polling places natin mismo, think of those. Dati nasa classroom yan, siksikan, gipit. Why not do it in wide open gymnasiums? Why not do it in basketball courts? Diba? So there are a lot of things that we can do in the next 1 year and a half.
So, Mr. Jimenez, ano dyan ang what can you not do or what can you what can you not do na kailangan pa ng legislation? Kasi yung extension, yung several days mukhang kaya naman, di ba? Sinabi niyo na nga. Ano yung mga you said ano yung mga ngailangan kayo ng legislation?
Well, definitely ma'am, yung alternate modes of voting. No? Very limited talaga yung application ng alternate modes of voting natin. Voting by mail, for instance, is only available to overseas Filipinos. We want to make it available to more people. But right now, the bill, I think, is only makes it available only to senior citizens, which is good because that's still a significant sector. That's about 9 million senior citizens. Yun basically. I'm sorry.
Kung magto 2 or 3 days kayo, you will need. I mean, voting by mail.
Yes.
Kailangan mo ng legislation.
Yes po.
Kung online voting.
Yung online vote,
will it require
legislation? It will definitely require. Opo.
Kaya ba nating i-assure yung integrity ng vote kung online saka by mail? Kaya ba natin? Kasi as it is now, nagkakaproblema tayo sa marami mga question lagi tungkol sa accuracy ng vote, yung integrity ng vote. Kaya ba nating i-assure yan? Kaya ng Comelec?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, we've conducted a pilot test of online voting, and we are right now discussing the possibility of maybe putting out a request for information for providers of online voting solutions. But to be honest with you, online voting really is seen as a solution for overseas voting, not so much for domestic voting. But definitely that's something that we're looking towards. No,
but
as for mail,
will it need new technology? Will you need a new voting system for online voting?
It will be needing new technology, new for us. The technology itself is mature already. No, a lot of other countries do it, but for us, yes, it will be a new thing.
Sir, ako sir, I'm not a lawyer, pero may reading lang of the Constitution. Well, tell me if I'm getting this right or wrong. Yung Article 7 kasi of the Constitution seems to say na the election itself of everybody from the president, the vice president, senators, congressmen, and so on down the line can be moved if there is a law that allows it to be moved. In other words, it's not a violation of the Constitution to move the election. What the Constitution only bars, not unless you have an amendment to the Constitution, is extending the term of the president and the vice president beyond June 30 noontime. Yun explicit yun sa Article 7, Section 4 ng Constitution. So, unless otherwise provided by law, the regular election for president and vice president shall be held on the second Monday of May. So, pwede siyang i-move. Yun lang, hindi mo lang pwedeng i-move yung termino. Hindi mo pwedeng extend beyond June 30 unless you amend the Constitution.
Right.
So, yun po. So, kasi in the same way that we seem to be doing it so regularly that we move the SK elections, the barangay elections, and the armed elections by law.
Yeah. The difference, sir, Ed, is that the barangay elections and the SK elections are actually creations of legislation. Meron lang batas na gumagawa sa kanila. And of course, since the law is a creation of Congress, then it follows that Congress can amend that law very easily. The national elections, however, are a creation of the Constitution. Meaning to say, they are quite literally a creation of the Filipino people. Which means that you have to amend the Constitution if you want to change the schedule. But you pointed out that unless the law provide otherwise, I think this is the reason why we're able to do 30 days of overseas voting, because we're still doing it on May 9, but we're just adding more days to it. So hindi na move yung elections, no? Na-expand lang yung coverage. Like yourself, I am not a lawyer, and this is how I understand it, and this is how we understand it, no? And I think the weight of legal authority is that Yes, this is a constitutional issue if you want to move the elections from the second Monday of May to any other date. The
Yes.
Yeah,
third thing,
Director, no, sir.
yes, sir. The third thing we need to point out
No,
there
sorry,
is
sorry, go ahead.
if you move the elections, then are you not also moving the term of the president or whoever gets elected? Because then you'll be running afoul of the June 30 deadline.
Yes, sir. Yun nga,
Um,
yun yung ano eh, yun yung parang
yeah,
yun
there
yung
are
backstop
periods
eh.
there.
So
So
what you can do is you can move it
backstop.
forward. I mean, you can move it back or earlier. That would give you
That's
more time to hold the election. Kasi sir,
that's
also
what we're looking at.
overseas absentee voting kasi that's provided for by law eh. There's an
30
act.
days before.
Yes, sir. There's a law specific to that which allows overseas absentee voting ahead of the regular elections eh.
That's
So
right.
yun lang, that gives you more flexibility if there is a law, I suppose,
Absolutely.
resetting the election itself.
Absolutely. But not postponing.
Director, I'm interested in something that you said because everybody's now focused on May 2022. But gaya nga ng sabi nyo, if you fall back on the Constitution, malinaw naman yung mandate, mas masalimuot yung usapin nung ano magiging itsura ng kampanya when the Comelec has, in tandem with the IATF and the other agencies, have to regulate all of the traditional means of campaigning also. I wanted to talk about that. I mean, how else do you anticipate? As you said, you're proceeding on the assumption na COVID pa rin hanggang 2022. So
Right.
could you expound a bit on something you already opened up? How else will the campaigning look? And anticipating, as you said, no, malilimit yung mga physical campaigns, a lot will shift to digital and online. But that poses a lot of different problems as well. So I'll throw it in there na rin. Are we discussing regulating campaigning on social media and all digital platforms as well?
Well, right now, if we take it in bite-sized chunks, the first thing we need to do is we need to agree that physical gatherings really have to be limited. Okay, physical gatherings that are not for the purpose of redress of grievance, maybe I should say, no, but political gatherings. Political gatherings, we need to find the proper legal precedent. We need to find the proper legal language to describe a political gathering in a way that makes sure that if we are going to prohibit it, that the prohibition is narrow enough that it doesn't spill over to other to damage other rights. No, so yes, that's a problem. Of course, may downstream effects yan. If you're going to limit people from going out, then you're going to have to give them an out somewhere. And as you pointed out, that's probably going to be online campaigning. Now, as far as online campaigning is concerned, Congress has consistently taken a hard pass on regulating social media. I don't expect that it will be any different this time around, especially now that everyone is relying on social media for their communication needs. So I think Comelec, again, will probably be going it alone, just like we did in 2016, when 2019, when we issued regulations for social media. But again, it'll be something that will have to be very carefully thought out. And certainly we're in the early days yet, too early to get into the weeds of things. But this is the direction that is looking very possible at this moment.
But you're talking about regulating on the side of the candidates and the side of the political parties,
Right.
or for that matter, even civil society who might want to get involved as well in their own messaging and their own advocacies. But what about
Right.
on the level of, and we know this is happening in governments and countries all over the world, having direct negotiations and direct conversations at the very least with Facebook, with Twitter, with all of these powerful platforms. Is that an ongoing conversation direct with the platforms?
Yes, in fact, we do have regular contact with representatives of Facebook. Representatives of Twitter, not so much. I don't think they have a Philippine office. I think the Philippine affairs of Twitter are handled by like a larger office, mostly Asia. So we haven't had the opportunity yet to speak with them. But in every elections since 2016, we've always been in communication with them prior to elections, and we've been in tandem with how they deal with the candidates. For instance, in the last elections, 2019, Facebook was instrumental in finalizing the social media campaigning rules, including the rules on declaration of ad times uh, that were put out on social media. They're part of that conversation, and yes, they will certainly be major partners now. I use the word partner slightly loosely, but they will be part of this conversation.
Mr. Jimenez, I want to go back to the extended voting days.
Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Ano yung logistics involved there? Will it be more expensive? Will you need more people? And sinabi, in relation to that, as Education Secretary Leonor Briones said, baka maraming mag-volunteer na mga teachers na nawalan ng trabaho ngayon, and they will want to help during the elections. Is the Comelec willing to accept more volunteers?
Well, I think, ma'am, if we extend the hours, I really think that will drive the volunteer numbers up. No, earlier we were having discussions on the budget, and one of the things that came up is actually what you said, that we would have to spend more for the teachers because they're not just working one day, they'd be working maybe 2 to 3 days. No, so that's part of the planning that we're doing now, and certainly logistically, that will have a major impact. Talaga magmamahal po ng konti yung halalan natin.
So, nire-reassess niyo po ngayon yung budget?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ano kayang percentage ang iaakyat for the preparations?
I really would not be able to say kung ilang percentage, ma'am, but I'll give you a ballpark. What we did was we asked for 30 billion pesos, the budget, but it was slashed to 14 billion. With 14 billion, we'll have just barely enough to hold elections the way we held elections before, which means one VCM machine for about 1,000 people. And that's just the one day. So if we were to get the 13 million more, then we'd be in a better position to, the 17 or 16 million that we lost, then we would be in a much better position to handle all of these logistical changes.
Pero sir, originally ba for 2022, what did the Comelec have in mind? Were you planning to buy new VCM machines or PCOS machines, or refurbish the old ones? What was on the plan?
Yeah, plan A was to lease all new machines. So let's say you're gonna need 100. Yeah, you're gonna need 100,000 new machines, right? Roughly 100,000. We were planning on getting 100,000 new machines. Okay, 100,000. Why? Because the VCMs were used for the last two elections, and we all know that the fact that we used them in the last two elections means that there will be someone who will say, but you used old machines and therefore we're having problems, right? So ultimately, everyone agreed that best case scenario was that you'd have all new machines. The fallback was that if we did not get enough money to lease the 100,000 plus new machines, that we would use the 97,000 machines that we do have now and then add a few more, okay, just to make up the difference. And so that's our plan B, and that's the plan that we're most likely to go forward with unless our budget is restored. So nandun po tayo sa reusing the VCM. So
hanggat hindi yakit yung budget, yung dating makina ang gagamitin pa rin ngayon.
Gagamitin pa rin natin. So lalabas niyan, 3 halalan na natin ginamit yung makina. Now, having said that, hindi naman problema yon, no? That's not a problem. Kaya nga meron tayong refurbishment budget. No? Our refurbishment budget is more than 1 billion pesos, and that's basically to maintain the machines and to upgrade them so that they're like new. All right? But they are not new. They're the ones that we used in 2016. They're the ones that we used in 2019, and we're just going to change some parts in them. No, like rollers, for instance, will be replaced. Some scanners might need to be upgraded. But all in all, they'll still remain essentially the same machine. Yun yung refurbishment na tinatawag natin.
Yung monitoring,
Mr. Jimenez,
If you put back the 17 billion, then you can buy the 100,000 all new VCMs. Ganun ba yun?
Lease lang, sir. Lease lang.
Lease, sorry.
But yes.
yung monitoring ng campaign finance, medyo mahirap na yun even before eh. Pero sa ngayon, sa ganyang klaseng scenario, voting by mail, yung ibang klaseng, your different modes of voting, sa tingin nyo mas madali ba o mas mahirap mag-monitor ng campaign expenditures?
I think it's a sure bet, ma'am, na mas mahirap. You know? For one thing, yung legwork na dati nating nagagawa, our capacity for that is in half, cut in half. Simply because most of our people are not even working in the offices anymore. So how are they going to go through the receipts?
So are you planning to increase your capacity? Meron bang ganung pinag-uusapan ngayon?
Definitely, ma'am. Isa yan sa palagi nababanggit. Do you need more people? Do you need more capabilities? Well, yes, we will need more people, and we will also need more partnerships, no, more synergies with other government agencies, and we're looking towards.
Mr. Jimenez, ako ang interest ko, I mean, same question, same line of question like for Ami, pero interest ko dun sa retail level, as we say. Now, on the one hand, the limited ang physical campaigning, di makakalabas ang mga tao, all the way to voting times, limited pa rin yung mga tao. On the other hand, all of these advances in digital technology, including fintech, what will be the impact on things like vote buying? Does this make it harder or easier to monitor or to curb vote buying?
Well, in terms of let's talk about vote buying specifically. For vote buying, we have a specific task force tasked with monitoring vote buying, and they're telling me that they're assuming that it's going to be a little more difficult. One of the things that makes it more difficult is, ironically, the one thing that made life so much easier during the pandemic. Wireless transfers.
Exactly.
So, you know, it becomes a lot more complicated because we now we need to talk to more people. I mean, we're not really just talking to Facebook. We're talking to all of these facilitators, these transaction facilitators, no? So medyo malawak talaga eh, malawak ka. And that's why even now the Comelec is starting to coalesce into different subunits that will handle all of these different things.
So anong agencies yung nako-contact nyo? TICT, kailangan yon. Yung National Commission, are you coordinating with them?
We will be coordinating po with a large number of other agencies, particularly those involved with finance, those involved with consumer protection. I think very plainly, no. But right now, wala pa tayong moves dyan. We're just organizing pa lang.
And with the private sector groups, of course. You are also
monitor groups. We will be coordinating with them, ma'am. We have an accreditation process. Baka nga, one of the possibilities nga is dati, citizens arm natin for vote watching, poll watching, voter education. We might have to think up new categories for citizens arms.
For techies, yung nakakaintindi ng technology kasi napakahirap ng trabaho. Di ba?
Yes po.
But in the meantime, sir, you already touched on this a bit, but speaking of how, lahat ng sectors ngayon, lahat ng industry forced to digitalize, forced to go digital, and so on, what does all of these exercises mean, not necessarily for 2022, but looking even ahead of that, what does this all mean for ultimately a new normal of digital voting, of online voting?
Well, I think in the long term and thinking beyond the coming elections, I think what this will do is that this will force a paradigm change in how we run elections. No, I think one of the things that this pandemic emphasized is that we can't do away with digital, and in fact, there are a lot of aspects of elections that will probably be forced to migrate to digital. What those are might be a political question sooner rather than later. but that's something that we have to be ready for. No, questions like how do you monitor actual voting day practices? How do you do that?
Yes.
I mean, a lot of the old models involve people actually being there, eh. And people can't be there anymore, or at least their presence should be cut in half. So marami tayong kailangan pag-isipan, and again, not to sound cliched, but it will require an all of society approach to be very about it.
Pero
Okay.
kaya
Huli na
natin.
lang po.
Kaya natin. We have only
Kaya natin.
less than 2 years, 1.5 years to prepare. Kaya ba natin?
Kaya po natin yan, especially if we're focused, and if we keep our eyes on on course, no? Like I always say, it's like earthquake readiness. Pag magkalindol ngayon, everyone will know what to drop, cover, and hold. We have to attain that level of awareness among people. That when we say elections in 2022, they'll know exactly what it means, what is expected of them, and what they should expect to see.
Okay, in the meantime, Director, we're running out of time. Pero kamusta po ang registration? It's still ongoing, di ba? Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers and to our people when it comes to registration, and especially those who need to register?
You're right. It's still ongoing. But in the last 3 weeks, we've only registered about 221,000 people. That's still low. I mean, even if we account for the fact that it's early days, that's still medyo mababa. Dati 221,000 in 3 weeks. That was just like 2 cities in Metro Manila. But now it's nationwide, no? So there's still a lot of need to mobilize people to get them to register. We're coordinating with the IATF to help put the minds of our people at ease. That there's this thing going around that people are saying na bawal kasi lumabas yung mga bata, bawal lumabas yung matatanda, therefore hindi sila makakapagparehistro, and that I think is putting a damper on our numbers. So we're coordinating with ITF to make sure that we get that sorted out. But in general, for everyone who hasn't registered yet, registration is still ongoing. It's from Tuesdays to Saturdays from 8 in the morning till 3 p.m. Please register. If you can, download the forms before you come. If you can, make an appointment. But whatever you do, however you do it, make sure that you register.
Pwede po walk-in. Pwede walk-in.
Pwede walk-in.
How many voters are you expecting to register ba?
We're expecting that there are about 4 million newly eligible voters. So you take the 4 million, and then you add the around 2 to 3 million reactivations that we're expecting. So you're looking at a total registration expectation of about 7 million.
Bagal pa. Okay.
Okay. Maraming salamat.
All right.
Dr. James Jimenez, sir, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Okay. So, yung hindi pa nagre-register, nasa edad naman tayo, di ba?
Hindi ako. I have to say, my 2 kids registered for the first time. I had to transfer my voting records to my precinct now in ano. And I have to say, mag-register po kayo habang walang tao. Habang maluwag pa. Buwan nagpunta kami ng maaga. Halos, I think there were only about 10 people doon sa kung saan kami nag-register. So ako, I babaka pa ko yung sinabi ni Director Jimenez, habang maaga po, mag-register na kayo habang wala pang tao.
Kapag last week siya, pila-pila yan. Ang haba-haba, magkahawa-hawa dyan ng COVID.
Okay. And that will be all for this weekend edition of the Chiefs.
Yes.
We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Edwin Gaupa News.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News.